Salamat, Tami. Tip ng bagay ni Tami ang Pizarro. Kasi Mr. Tikash na-mention yung pizza. So, maraming nagkakamali sa aming apelyedo. Kung minsan ganyan mo pag-spell, siguro yung iba nagugutom habang sinusulat. Double Z, nalalagay kasi double R. So, okay lang po yan. Walang ask ko sa ano. Ipapakita ko akong slides in terms tungkol sa body protection, di ba? Kung kayo may nasa sports or some kind of activity, meron po tayong ginagamit ng mga special equipments, katulad po dito. So, yan po ay isang sundalo. So, tayo isa naman ay parang modern warrior. Nakikita natin sa mga movies. Para saan po yung, anong protection mo ng ulo? Anong protection ng body? Minsan are your vest, di ba? Ano ang protection ng kamay? Anong kailangan ng kamay para hindi masugat? O yung nag-skateboard, so ano yung nasa knees, ginagamit nila? Ano naman ang kailangan nito? Ha?
Gamot.
Ano kailangan?
Gamot.
Shoes pa. Okay. Actually, yung kailangan mo niyan ay foot washing. Ang tatalakayin ko pong scripture for today ay yung pong sa John 13. And it shows the kind of a God Jesus Christ truly was when He lived. And alam niyo, kung minsan doon sa buhay po ni Kristo, ang dami mong nagdududa sa Kanyang pagiging isang Diyos. Diba? His title is both the Son of Man as well as the Son of God. If someone today claims that he or she is a God, how would we know? And that is perhaps a question that I'd like for us to think about. If someone says, I am a God, or I am the Son of God, the question is, how would we know? Just like sa time po ni Jesus, sabi nila, show us a sign. Okay, they were asking for miracles. And indeed, Jesus Christ, during His lifetime, performed lots of miracles, performed great signs, starting with turning the water into wine. And in fact, Satan tempted Him in asking, if you are the Son of God, turn this stone into bread, because he was already hungry. So, again, how do we know that someone is a God? Okay? Jesus Christ brought back to life dead people. And that would make us believe that He is a God. We probably ask Him difficult questions like, okay, if you're the Son of God, could you explain quantum physics? Could you explain why the universe existed the way it is? Could you tell us about all of these phenomena? And probably His answers would make us believe that He indeed is a God. Still, some would ask, like Philip did, is show us the Father. If you really are the Son of God, then could you please show us the Father? That way we would believe that you indeed are the Son of God. So in knowing the true Son of God, Jesus Christ actually showed throughout His life many ways by which He identified Himself as the true Son of God. Starting from, for example, fulfilling prophecy, the great wisdom He had, and the authority He had when He preached the Scriptures. Yet even though these manners by which Jesus revealed Himself are obvious, that He indeed is the Son of God, there is yet a less known way by which He revealed Himself unmistakably as the true loving God. And this is our topic for today. I've titled it, The God Who Serves. We will look closely at verses 1 to 17 of John 13. And John 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 are all chapters leading to the death of Jesus Christ. In fact, all of those 5 chapters account to probably about the last 6 hours of Jesus' life. The last 6 hours of Jesus as he was betrayed and as before he was crucified. So let's now look at the setting of the story. Of course, this is the foot washing story, and we will look at these verses again. But let's read it. I know some of you are very familiar with this. Let's start with. I'm starting with. Okay, that's right. That's verse 1. It was just before the Passover festival. So this is the setting. They had a festival, and as you know, Passover is a happy occasion for the Jews. It's not a sad occasion. For them, it's a family affair, it's a gathering, they prepare a special meal. During that time, the lamb, the chosen lamb, is something that they really reserve for this special day. So it is a happy occasion. But as we know, ironically, this is kind of sad occasion also for Jesus Christ, because it is the beginning of his death hours. It's just a few hours before he dies. So that's the irony of it. But we know that this is a Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Now think about what feeling Jesus felt at that time. It's a mixture of both being relieved that he will now go to the Father, but at the same time he knows that, just like when he prayed at Gethsemane, his perspiration became like blood because he really was so much in agony, in anguish about what he was to go through. But Jesus was looking forward already to this time by which he would leave his disciples, he would leave the world and go to the Father again. So it is a mixture of both difficult time for him as well as a time of looking forward to being with the Father. And also, like I've said, it's a series of events from the betrayal of one of his disciples, capture, crucifixion, and all of that. Having loved his own, who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Okay? This is talking about all of his disciples who were with him, but also all of those believers. So, Jesus Christ here is saying that John accounted he loved them. And the word love, especially in John, appears so many times. He loved them to the end. Now, look at the word in the world as well as going to the Father. So we can see that there is a kind of leaving his disciples in the world as he was going to the Father. But what connects those two separate places, let's just say, is his love for them. He loved them to the end. Some verses or some translation has that as he loved them completely. So he loved his own disciples. He loved them to the end. That is, he loved them completely and totally. Okay, not just to the end of that time, but actually it's more like a complete and total love. Verse 2 now, the evening meal was in progress. So they were still having a meal. Okay? They were still having a meal, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. When you read that verse, it's kind of strange how John has this meal in progress and immediately connects the devil prompting Judas. It makes us think, why would John even write that very strange and very negative act that Judas is about to do in the context of the meal, especially a very special meal? Okay? There seems to be a point being drawn by John in connecting the Passover meal to the hidden evil intention of Judas. Perhaps it is this betrayal of Judas that would bring into fulfillment the real and spiritual meaning of the Passover. So we cannot separate the act of betrayal of Judas from the actual Passover meal. It is as if without the betrayal, the real Passover meal of what it really means will not come into its full meaning or fulfillment, or whatever spiritual meaning the Passover meal is all about. Remember, the Passover meal that they were eating is actually regularly was actually a lamb. Okay? And the lamb is actually what? Jesus Christ himself. And without the betrayal, there could never be a fulfillment of a lamb, which is Jesus Christ. Jesus didn't know it, Judas didn't know it, but in allowing himself to be used by the devil, he's actually instrumental in fulfilling the Old Testament Passover meaning and prophecy. Verse 3 now, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. He was separated. Even at this very moment, when Jesus knew that he will be separated and will be betrayed by the religious leaders, he never lost his power and authority as a member of the triune God. Okay? He never lost it. Because the Father had put all things under his power. So, Jesus actually had every power to resist being captured, to resist being under the devil's arms or power, because he never lost it. His being God always remained with him, even though he was also man at the same time, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. Again, that picture of going to the Father is being stressed here. Okay? So, John is actually trying to stress that point that Jesus is about to die, but he will be going to the Father. Physically, he's not going to be with the disciples, but he's going to the Father. And so that's the setting. That's the way John puts the setting of the story. Saying everything here that it's all about prophecy and it's all about the will of God being fulfilled. Now let's go to the next verses, and this is all about the foot washing thing that Jesus did. This is not part of the Jewish tradition of the eating of the Passover meal. This is not something that they do. Okay? Again, remember that they are still in the meal. What Jesus is doing is not outside of the Passover meal. It's not like the way we do it, in which we have foot washing first, and then we have a separate meal of eating the bread and the wine. In this case, remember, they were still at the table, they were eating, and then Jesus just rises up. Okay? It's not like they were done. And then, okay, we're all done, now I'm going to go and wash your feet. No. So he got up from the meal. It's not something that was practiced, and therefore it was something of a surprise. Took off his outer clothing, and of course the disciples were saying, "Anong ginagawa niya?" Bakit niya tinatanggal yung, kumbaga, kung meron kang napaka-special na gamit, tinatanggal mo yun, ay special na clothing, diba, tatanggalin mo muna yun, or bumalik mo, at magiging parang kung ano lang yung kuminsan, wala kang either damit, or mayroon ka lang inner clothing. And wrap a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet. Can you see how detailed John wrote this particular account? You know, very, very carefully he wrote it. He got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet. Hindi na sinabing, Jesus stood up and washed your feet. Okay. So, I think for John, this is very significant. This is significant for him. He got up, meaning to say Jesus initiated a new, a very different action. He removed his outer clothing. In a way, he relinquished his position as their master, as their rabbi, as their teacher at that time. He took it off. Wrapped a towel around his waist, and this means he became like a servant, a lowly servant. Poured water, and when we think about that, the water is like the Holy Spirit. Washed the feet of the disciples, and of course, sabi rin sa John, you are already clean because the word has spoken to you. So the cleansing of the water signifies both the Spirit's cleansing and the Word of Christ cleansing the spirit of the disciples. Dry their feet. It shows a complete service from the beginning to the end. Hindi lang pinabayaan ni Jesus na basahin kanilang mga paa, but He dried it. So it's a really complete thing. And then, He put on His clothes. Okay, these are the things He did. He put on His clothes again. And, put on His clothes and returned to His place. Which means becoming their teacher once again. So in that very short span of maybe a few minutes, from his standing up, removing his garments, He did something that was very surprising to the disciples, particularly to Simon. So let's read verse 6. He came to Simon, who said to Him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Bakit niya tinatanong ito? Because it was never been done before. And perhaps Christ never did this kind of washing your feet before. Only at this very first, this time that He was about to die, He showed them this washing of feet. Now, we may think about that. Why did Jesus Christ do this prior to this particular night? Why not? If foot washing was so important, why only this night? In other words, this particular washing of feet has something to do with the events that are about to take place and the meaning of the Passover meal. Now, I'd like to emphasize again, the washing of feet is part of, integral to, the meal. Okay? It's part of the meal. Or, another way to say it, the washing actually is also symbolized in the meal that they just partook. So, that is very important. So, of course, that's why Peter was really kind of offended, actually. Peter may have been the very first one that Jesus approached. He was surprised, appalled, because it was not customary and it breaks the tradition of the Jews for a master to do a lowly task. He questioned Jesus. He objected. with that particular question when he said in verse 7, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Okay? It's not just a question of, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? But there is that kind of an objection in that statement. And Jesus, of course said, you do not realize now but what I'm doing, but later, you will understand. The word later is something that is very significant in this statement because they cannot yet grasp what it really meant. Jesus says that this is something Peter will not, and neither will all the disciples, perceive by any of their physical senses at the moment. Okay? There was nothing they see, there was nothing that they can feel that would make them explain the meaning of this washing of the feet. Because if they can perceive the meaning, Jesus Christ would not say this. So the meaning, as implied by Jesus, has something to do with the spiritual essence or the spiritual significance of it all. And Peter said in verse 8, no. Okay? No. Hindi lang yun. You shall never wash my feet. So, sometimes we think of this and say, well, sobra naman si Peter. No? But actually, Peter was just reacting properly. If we were in the shoes of Peter, we would probably feel like this is just the right thing to say. No, you will not wash my feet. No? Now we can, of course, we're looking back at all of these events, and we can say Peter shouldn't have said that. Peter should have accepted it. But actually, this is the right response for a student towards a master. Again, because he did not understand. Peter is clearly against Jesus in doing what he is doing to him. He objects with a clear no, followed by a strong never. Alam niyo na pag nagsasalita din si Peter, meron pagka, impulsive. Diba? He protests. And because he cannot imagine Jesus stooping down so low like that. And I believe that if Peter had become a leader without this kind of experience, it would be difficult also for him to stoop down to serve other people of lower rank. A God, Peter, a God, Christ himself, would never wash the feet of the disciples. I think this is very significant. The reaction of Peter is very significant because it shows who we really are. That's the human nature. That's the way we think. Our natural way of thinking is that a Christ, a teacher, a God, would never wash our feet. Isn't that the way we think? We think so highly of our God that we are the ones deserving to wash His feet, but we can never imagine our God washing our feet. He is stating that it is not fitting for a master to become a slave to the disciples. It is a disservice to His position as Christ, and it is a shame to His being a God to wash the disciples' feet. Imagine again the picture I showed you earlier. Those are very dirty feet. You can just imagine if you're walking on, the usual path they have. The feet of the disciples would be very dirty. Kulang siguro yung isang, yung isang drum to wash and really make things clean. And it took time. Sa atin, we just take, isang tabo lang, nasa natin, isang tabo, kasya na yun sa dalawang paa. Diba? But in order for Jesus to really clean each other, all the 24 feet, ano ba yung bilang ko? Well, yeah, 24, diba? Then it would take time. At hindi lang yun, nakikita nila. Habang ginagawa na yun, pinapakita ni Peter yung paa niya. Mga daliri ng, ay mga daliri ng paa na parang, luya. Sabi, tama, di ba? Minsan nasabihin ako na nung high school eh. Tingnan yung paa ni Carlos yung parang luya. Hindi naman, pero buti na yun description. But hindi lang yun. It's really, really dirty. So let's not gloss over these details that John has written here. And just imagine, stay with that. It took time. It took probably maybe 3-5 minutes. Let's just say 3-4 minutes to really clean the disciples' feet. Okay? So how many minutes would that be? For each of the disciples, sabihin na ng 5 minutes. Times what? Times, well, ilan yun? 60. Hard. Kung sabihin na natin 30 minutes, mabilisan na lang. Sabihin na 30 minutes. Still, it took a long time. But habang ginagawa yan, imagine yourself being Peter, showing your feet, and all the disciples were watching. Di ba nakakaya ng konti yun? Okay? Hindi lang yun. Okay lang na mahawakan ng paa mo ng isang slave. Pero mahawakan ng isang distinguished teacher, that is something else. And it's struggle. I believe that Peter struggled with that. It wasn't something that's easy for him to accept. Okay? That's understandable. I appreciate the way Peter answered Jesus, because it really showed human nature. It really showed who I am if I were in his shoes also. But sabi ni, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Oh, now the meaning is coming out. Diba sabi niya, you will not understand, but later, you don't understand, but later you will understand. And Jesus is connecting the washing to having part with Jesus Christ. It means being part of the fellowship of God. Jesus makes us part of himself through his own initiative, his own action to cleanse and wash us. It was Jesus' initiative to stand up and wash us. Wash Peter, wash the disciples. And in the same manner, it is Jesus' initiative to cleanse each one of us right now. He takes the initiative. He wants to do it. He will do it. Peter didn't recognize this essential connection between washing the feet of his feet and having fellowship with Jesus. But that is exactly what Jesus is saying. And of course, doon naman yung konting impulsivity ni Jesus, ni Peter, sorry. Sabi niya, then, Lord, not just my feet, but my hands and my hands as well. Okay? So, meron na sagot po ni Jesus. Those who have had baths need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. What needs cleaning, Jesus cleaned. Okay? And you know what? When they come for a meal, they would always wash their hands. There were occasions when they did, but usually on special occasions like this, they don't miss washing their hands. So there was really no need for Jesus to wash their hands. Jesus clarifies why he washed only their feet. He only washed what needed to be washed. Their whole body need no washing except that part which was dirty. In their case, since they wear sandals, much of their feet is exposed to dust and mud. It makes no sense to wash a part of the body that is actually clean and need no washing. That is why in the GCI website, as I will read later, the tradition of foot washing is no longer seen as required or necessary, since most of the members have clean feet from wearing shoes, and that we don't walk on dirty roads as the first century disciples did. And you are clean, sabi ni Jesus, you're clean, though not every one of you. Didn't he just wash, I think he was still in conversation with Peter here. You are clean, though not every one of you. So there's a kind of dirtiness that Jesus is referring to here, and there's someone there who was not actually clean. Of course, we know that is Judas. So the physical act of cleansing has a spiritual meaning. And this is what, again, Jesus is coming back to. For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said, not everyone was clean. Here, Jesus shifts this meaning of clean from a physical to spiritual. Pabalik-balik na si Jesus dito on the meaning. There's the physical and there's the spiritual cleanness. And pabalik-balik siya sa both of the two meanings. Judas is referred to as not clean, at least not on the inside. Did Jesus wash Judas' feet? Yes, most certainly. But the meaning of the washing somehow did not apply to Judas, as he had an evil intention even at the very start of the meal. Jesus' words did not abide with him. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. And now he asked the question, do you understand what I've done for you? Remember kanina? They did not understand. They could not understand. And now he repeats the same question. Do you understand what I've done for you? Most likely they have not a little. They have sort of had a sense of what he really meant. And he explained further, you call me teacher, Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I know your Lord and teacher have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. But remember, when he said this, there is that spiritual application of the physical act. John describes that after washing all of the disciples' feet, he details the putting on again of his outer clothes and return to his specific place by the table. That's like what I said, it is becoming a teacher again. It is becoming no longer a servant that they saw, but it is becoming the Christ again. And as a teacher, he asked them these questions. But he did not, of course, he sensed that they understood a little bit. But the word later kasi has another meaning. It could be later during this meal or later during your lifetime. So I would think that the word later is that they would understand the true meaning of what washing of feet as they lived their life, as they washed one another's feet. Okay? I would like now to read this is written by Joseph Ticach. The Bible was written in a specific culture, and it's referring to this particular event of foot washing, and its instructions are sometimes phrased with specific customs. Paul tells us to greet one another with a holy kiss, and foot washing is even more tied to culture than kissing. It is based on foot travel, dusty roads, and open-toed sandals. In Jesus' day, foot washing was a normal part of a formal banquet. Now, it is not. now in this particular time, this is no longer part of customary formality, and it is no longer viewed as an honor or service. We obey the intent of Paul's command not by kissing but by greeting one another with affection. We obey the intent of Jesus' command by not washing our guests' feet, but by helping them in other ways. There is no need to insist on taking one command literally and adapting other to modern customs. Both may be adapted so that we obey the intent. Okay? When we serve one another throughout the year, and not just during the Passover season, helping one another in our real needs, we are obeying the spirit of the law of Christ. We are washing feet when we give the leaders rights to church, when we help them move furniture, katulad ng dito bahay, when we bring a meal for the sick, when we clean house for the bereaved. We wash feet when we encourage the depressed, are patient with the angry, we spend time with the lonely. We wash feet, and I may also add, when we say thank you, appreciate the works of other people. So here is the right application of the act, the physical act. In fact, in the New Testament, there is no record other than what Jesus did of the disciples washing each other's feet. Okay? Just like this one. This is an application. Today I'm taking the kids out so you can rest because I love you. So, especially for mothers who are overworked at home, taking the children out by the husband would be a great thing, of great service to your wife. This is Mother Teresa, of course, feeding the homeless in India. And look at the face of the child. Look at his arms. Looks like he's so weak to even hold a spoon by himself. That Mother Teresa had to hold it. And Mother Teresa says, do ordinary things with extraordinary love. That is the spirit of food washing. Can you think of yourself doing the job of a lowly janitor, for example? Can you think of yourself doing the job of maybe a traffic enforcer, a street sweeper, or a garbage collector? If that is needed, is that something we can do or volunteer on doing? That is the spirit of food washing. Continuing on, John 13, I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. He is setting an example for the disciples to follow on how he served. More importantly, he's saying, as I have served, so serve also. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. How do we understand this? It simply means that if the boss can do it, then all the employees can do it too. Kung nakayanan ng boss na magtapon ng basura, for example, how much more for ordinary employees? If the teacher did it, how much more for the students? This is not about authority, but this is about an attitude, this is about an example. So, in terms of the example, if the master did it, so should the follower. If the messenger did it, so will the disciples. Nor is the messenger greater than the one who sent him. In other words, kung hindi exempted si Christ in doing foot washing, we are not exempted from that either. If Christ had that attitude to serve the lowly and relinquished his authority, relinquished his being a God, how much more for us? That's what that means. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. There is a blessing in the doing. In fact, this is part of the you will understand later. It is when we do it that we actually understand what it truly means. There are three main lessons that I'd like to highlight with this story. Number one is that the foot washing makes us have a personal and intimate relationship with Jesus Christ. Washing the feet from Jesus' perspective means an intimate relationship He has with us. Can you imagine that? God becoming like one of us and becoming our servant. When you bathe somebody, for example, a child or an elderly, this means you have an intimacy with that person. For example, halimbawa may sakit po tayo, di ba? Halimbawa, hindi tayo makagalaw, kailangan natin ng matlipuan. Sino ang tatawagin nyo? Yung hindi nyo kilala o yung kilala nyo? Siyempre, yung kilala mo natin. Papayagan mo ba natin na papaliguan ng ating tatay na bedridden, for example, na someone we don't know? No. And would you allow yourself to be bathed by somebody, a stranger? Of course not. So, this means that when we serve somebody, there is an existing relationship that is there. The disciples didn't know it. The disciples didn't actually realize that they have an intimate relationship with Christ. But Christ is showing that, look, I'm doing this for you because I, sabi ni Christ, have an intimate relationship with you already. I am not a stranger. I am a friend. I am a family member. I am closer to you than you think. I'd like to share with you a story. We had a retreat once, and we had this guided meditation on this particular verses, okay? And the priest was so good at really making us go through the scene, the experience, much like what I did with you last time I spoke. And we were closing our eyes and we sort of imagine how it felt like to be one of the disciples. But we have another friend, okay? And sabi niya, after it all ended, sabi niya, I opened my eyes when Jesus approached me and was about to touch my feet. No. He had to escape that scene. Instead of closing his eyes and being part of the meditation, being guided, he had to open his eyes. Why? Very interesting. And we have a psychologist as one of our participants. And her analysis was, you know what, sabi niya, I think you have intimacy issues. And it's very true. It's very true. Do we have intimacy issues with Christ? Can we imagine Him holding our feet and washing our feet? Are we so private sometimes when we don't like anybody to touch us to the point that even Christ, who is our Savior, is someone we resist? We don't like Him to touch our dirty feet. I believe it is important for us to learn that in this foot washing story, Jesus Christ is offering us, is showing us that He has fellowship with us. He has intimacy with us. The question is, will we allow ourselves to to be hugged by Him, become part of that circle, to be His true, intimate friend. He already did it. He stood up. He initiated it. It's there. No? It's already there. The thing is, can we allow our dirty feet, whatever that may be, whatever part of us that we think is dirty, and just let Christ cleanse it? Number 2, the foot washing makes us recognize our need to be cleansed and how that has been made possible in Jesus. From the disciples' end, to be washed is recognition of their need to be cleansed. Okay? Washing is all about being cleansed. They did not think it was needed at first. Diba? They already had finished the meal almost. Diba? Sarap na ng kanin nila. Then here is Jesus Christ all of a sudden interrupting the meal and doing this. Because He's trying to point out something. Maybe the disciples had gotten used to having dirty feet when they eat. They didn't mind having dirty feet at that time when they were having a special meal. For them, there is no need to be clean before Jesus. Remember the story of Moses at the burning bush? And Moses heard the voice of God, and he was commanded to remove his sandals, for the ground that he was standing on is actually holy. In the presence of God, Christ cleanses us. In the Old Testament, Moses had to remove his sandals. Kumbaga sinabihan lang siya, "Uy, ano yan, bawal yan. This is a holy ground." But in this particular story, the New Testament, ang nagtanggal ng maruming bahagi ng kanilang mga katawan ay si Kristo mismo. See the big difference there? We need to be clean and be holy before God. We cannot always see this need. As the disciples also did see the need to wash their feet. Well, physically, maybe it wasn't important at that time, diba? May mga times na they didn't have to wash their hands even. We cannot on our own remove our spiritual uncleanness, though, because we cannot always see that we are unclean. Like Jesus washing the feet of the disciples, He is the one by whom we can thoroughly be cleansed. By His body and blood, as what this whole story is actually telling. Let us accept His body and blood by which we can be truly cleansed of our guilt, our sins. We can have total, complete forgiveness and cleansing of all of our sins and our conscience. Number 3, the foot washing shows us the ultimate character of God. Be a servant of humanity. Remember the questions I've asked earlier at the beginning of this message? How would you know? How can we tell what a true God really is? Yeah, we can expect the wondrous miracles. We can expect all of these healings. We want to see that in a God. We want to see a God who's all about wisdom. We want to see a God that is all about power. We want to see miracles. That's the God we would normally expect. But a God becomes a servant? Would that be something you'd expect from a God? But that is exactly what's being said here. The only way to recognize a true God is if that God serves. His love is demonstrated in words, but ultimately by His becoming a servant who died in our behalf on the cross. A servant does jobs or tasks that the master doesn't want to do. On a regular culture, that's what we say. Or a boss would just command a servant to do this, which he cannot do himself. A human servant is paid. The God servant we know gives his very own life without any payment in return. His service, his sacrifice, his love is offered as a gift. It is beyond our capacity to pay him back. The good thing is, he doesn't want us to pay him back. Jesus' sacrificial service is priceless. Jesus washed the feet of the disciples to show them the true extent of his love through his humble and sacrificial service. The sign of a true God is a God who serves, humbly serves. Paul writes about this in Philippians 2. As you read this, think of the foot washing again. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, being in intimate relationship with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, these are all already existing and we all have these. If any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who, being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Now, the word nature there, I don't have exactly what that means, but it's not like hindi lang yung mukhang servant, but having the true mind of a servant, the mentality of a servant, the being of a servant, how a servant thinks, always looking at himself with no importance at all, but giving importance to whom he serves. Being made in human likeness, remember he's a God, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Okay? Also in chapter 10, verse 17, the reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it on my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, authority to take it up. Why did Jesus serve the way he did? Two things. Because it is his nature. To serve is his nature. To love is his nature. God is love. God serves. And he shows his love through his service. He cannot be otherwise. He is love. Another why Jesus served the way he did, sacrificially, because he chose to. I laid down my life. It was a decision he made. I laid down. Remember when he took off his outer clothing? He could have still, I'm just imagining, he could probably have had it still, diba? Pero pag may sudyan, no? Pero he really took on the nature of a servant, but he decided it. He laid down his life. So Jesus served the way he did because it was his nature to serve, and he chose to serve. He had the authority to lay down his life and authority to take it up again. It's not like Jesus had no choice. He had every choice, he had every power, and yet he gave it all up. But he also took it all again afterwards. The washing of feet is a pattern by which we ought to be living our lives today. It may go against the custom of for example, a president of a company to meet with the workers and dine with them and work with them. It may never have been done in the past also. Some of the things that we do may have to be required in becoming a servant like Christ. The disciples were asked to do likewise and find its true meaning in their doing. Likewise, we should not be afraid to go down below our level and become a lowly worker in order to experience blessings. No one is too high to become a lowly servant of another human being. The human Jesus lived like a God by serving like a slave. As Christians, we ought to become servants of others in order to have the mind of God. So in conclusion, as we can see, the foot washing story as recorded by John carries with it the very, very important lessons with deep meaning. It is important for all of us to realize that though Jesus literally and physically washed the disciples' feet, its true meaning lies in the life of service that is displayed up to the end of his life on the cross, so that we can have intimacy, union, and fellowship with the triune God. We too ought to serve one another in ways that we can afford. We serve not so much by washing clean feet, but by heartfelt and sacrificial service to our fellow men, offering what we can out of our resources, our time, and our talents. Sometimes we may be even required to give above and beyond what we normally would be able to give. We cannot afford not to serve if we are Christians. For in serving, we find life's true meaning. For serving is loving. Serving is living like Jesus himself lived. He revealed himself as the true God by his service. We also, brethren, ought to show that we are his true disciples by our love shown in our service towards one another. As Jesus promised, when we do this, we will truly be blessed.